Fox News' Peter Doocy asked National Security Council Coordinator John Kirby about President Biden's decision to sign a bill to declassify COVID-19 origins intelligence. Let's watch.
He says he will declassify COVID origins intel except info that would harm national security. Is there a bigger national security threat than something that killed 1.1 million people?
Yeah,
in this country?
I've seen some of the commentary on your network about this. The president obviously has to balance transparency with national security, Peter. Of course he does. Right when coming into office, ordered the declassification of what the DNI had on COVID origins, ordered the entire intelligence community, and added the Department of Energy to that list.
And where is it?
Hey, let me finish my answer.
If we're talking about the beginning of
added the
his
Department
term.
of Energy and the national labs, told them to keep studying it. We have kept Congress informed. Some of that has to be in a classified way right now, but it's always a balance between the public's right to know, right, not need, but right, and our obligation to protect national security.
We're not going to get anything.
Yeah.
I hate to let everybody down, and I wish it were different, but they are going to keep all important information to themselves, and there's no way you can make them.
I mean, John Kirby has to understand what Doocy is teeing up here. The idea of the label of national security interests would cover everything having to do with COVID potentially, and the lab leak or whatever it was potentially.
They would redact a ham sandwich.
Exactly.
Paraphrase.
So, I mean, to keep going back to the idea that, you know, it's national security, I was getting at this a little bit in my conversation with Matt Taibbi about the contours of the Twitter files and how do we know what you've been given. And this is this fundamental document archive question. And one of the ways that lawyers have figured out how to try to get at it is to say, well, I understand you can't give me everything, but can you at least offer me a little bit of a description of what you're not giving me and why more specifically, so I can maybe agree with you on some points, okay, that's classified, you shouldn't give it to me, and on other points say, this seems flimsy, offer me either better justification or turn it over. And it seems to me that I would like for journalists to start asking some more pointed questions about how they qualify what's in the national security interest, what does that mean to be in the national security interest, and how they're making those distinctions, what the timeline is for releasing additional information, how much information, how many pages of documents are being withheld at this point, who is reviewing those documents, and what the review, what's the metric upon which they're reviewing them? Because otherwise, you're right. There's ample opportunity for people to use security interests as a cover for non-disclosures and a lack of transparency.
To my mind, what counts as national security sensitive that needs to be redacted is U.S. spies in Russia, China, and elsewhere, their names, so that they're not apprehended. Like, sure, that you can redact from the documents. I get it. And that's about it for me. It's that level of secrecy that is okay. But of course, we know that our government cannot be trusted to decide what should actually be kept secret and what's not secret. That's why I never really cared about the classified documents scandal with Mar-a-Lago, and then it turned out Biden had them too, and so does Pence, because they just classify everything. It doesn't mean it actually has any national security component or is putting any sensitive information. And this is the same there. And yeah, we it's frustrating. There would need to be, there needs to be some kind of sweeping mandatory disclosure law that would pass Congress and be signed by the president, which is never going to happen of any party.
But by the way, we
party.
had that with respect to the Kennedy assassination documents.
Yeah.
They were the sweeping congressional law that everybody voted on said all of these documents were supposed to be made public by 2017. And Donald Trump released some of them, but they've been coming out in drips and drabs. Biden released a bunch
forgot
last
this
year.
one.
Right. They're still holding on to like 1,000 documents from the 1960s as a consequence of why? There's certainly no agent in the field. There's no CIA, live agent from the 1960s who's still hobbling around somewhere. That's just it's not the case.
The comedian's dead.
So
you saw Watchmen. He assassinates Kennedy in Watchmen.
That's way too far back in my TV watching memory banks here. But I also wanted to ask you, Robby, what you made of Kirby's little aside about, yes, I've seen the discourse on your network.
Yes.
Is that the kind of tone that someone who is ostensibly representing the people as a member of the president's press corps should be striking with reporters in the room?
Whatever, I guess. It was a little bit of a dismissive tone, but Fox is pretty harsh toward the administration, and so fine. I don't Okay, they're big boys. They can handle it. John Kirby, by the way, is a person who. Is he going to? I would love him to get a question every day about Nord Stream, in addition to all this stuff.
I know.
I should say.
Well, look, I guess my issue with it is that I think he was trying to play it both ways. He's trying to say, well, it's the Biden administration that now has two agencies that have come forward and said that lab leak is more likely than not. Kind of saying, we're playing ball here. We're not completely stonewalling you anymore. We're open to the idea of lab leak theory. Don't come for us. But also, I'm setting up an adversarial relationship. Even though I'm saying, oh, no, we're both investigating lab leak, then I'm going to set up an adversarial relationship by jabbing you with, well, I've seen the coverage on your network that's presumptively unfair.
That's fair.
Of course we know. I mean, we all know that these networks have their biases, and Fox News is no friend of Joe Biden. But what happened to the Michelle Obama era of you go low, we go high? I do think it's about protecting one's own credibility at the pulpit in the press room, as opposed to what Peter Doocy actually deserves to have in terms of.
And there's some of that on the journalist side too. We talked about yesterday the ridiculous little bit of like journalism solidarity against being marshaled in defense of the administration, or defense of the spokesperson, Karine Jean-Pierre, against a journalist who dared to ask a question out of turn. We talked about that yesterday. That was so ridiculous.
Yes, the dynamics in there. I mean, I think, look. There's a great podcast that is now ended called The West Wing Thing, with two leftists who basically critique liberals from taking too much advice as to how real politics actually works by listening to watching the West Wing TV show from
people really
the
took
90s.
That one to heart, huh?
And when I never do I think of the kind of West Wing brain rot more than when I see the dynamics that emerge in the briefing room, because everybody thinks they're CJ Craig. Everybody thinks that they're best friends with the people in the room. I also am thinking back to just last week with that moment where Karine Jean-Pierre made this off-the-cuff criticism of Marianne Williamson's campaign as having to do with crystals and orbs.
And they all chuckled.
And then they chuckled.
Yeah.
Like she's doing a stand-up routine. And it's
pretty
something.
toothless stuff, guys.
It's not giving impartiality. It's not giving, I'm a voice of an administration that's supposed to be a voice and spokesperson for all Americans. And I can't help but think that if Donald Trump and his spokespeople were in the room doing those kinds of things, we'd be talking about how it was undermining democracy and the integrity of a Republican primary process, and how dare he do campaigning from the pulpit and all of those kinds of things.
Anyway, just as a reminder, the information we're trying to get out of the administration is what was the intelligence that the Energy Department looked at that caused them to reach a conclusion that aligns with the FBI but does not align with some other government agencies.
Yeah.
This is very potentially interesting stuff.
Yes.
What did they see? I'd like to know. But we're going to have to wait until they decide that it's safe. For the
we got to get you a press room briefing pass, maybe, Robby.
We don't have. Neither of us have time to go there. We're making the show while they're doing the.
It's true.
Ryan Grimm used to attend. So I have attended a long time ago. I've attended before. Actually, I attended when I was a very lowly reporter at another publication. I was there for the press conference. It was relating to Benghazi. It was during the Obama administration, where he ended up saying it was the action that was taken against Gaddafi was because everyone was so upset about that movie, which ended up not being the case at all.
Oh, I do remember that. I do remember that.
So it actually was a kind of interesting day. That it turned out to be. It didn't seem interesting at the time, but later it was like, remember when they said it was that movie? It totally was not. Just a spontaneous reaction to that movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, we will have more Rising right after this. Please stay tuned.